Hello, everybody. My name is Jackson Jones, and I'll be doing the devotion for today. Today, I wanted to talk about testimonies and how testimonies can help others connect to you and help you share the gospel more effectively. I believe that your testimony, according to Acts chapter 22, should be split into three parts: who you were before you became a Christian, how God changed you, and who you are now as a Christian. In this chapter, Paul is talking to a group of religious leaders in Jerusalem about his testimony, and he splits his testimony up into these three parts. First of all, in verses 1 through 5, he talks about who he was before he was a Christian. Starting in verse number 1. Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense. When they heard him speak to them in Aramaic, they became very quiet. Then Paul said, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city. I studied under Gamaliel and was thoroughly trained in the law of our ancestors. I was just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison, as the high priest and all the council can themselves testify. I even obtained letters from them to their associates in Damascus, and went there to bring these people as prisoners to Jerusalem to be punished. This shows Paul as he was before he was a Christian. He was a persecutor of Christians, and he was a Pharisee. But there was three main ways in this passage that Paul connected to his audience, which was the religious leaders. First of all, that he was a Jew in verse number 3, which really connects him to their heritage because the religious leaders were also Jews. Secondly, that he was taught to be a religious leader by one of the best of their time named Gamaliel. Paul was at a time a Pharisee, which I bet some of these religious leaders who were bringing accusations against Paul were Pharisees. Thirdly, Paul said that he persecuted the way or Christianity before he became a Christian, which was what these religious leaders were doing at the time. They were persecuting Paul because he was preaching the gospel. I feel like that this part is probably the most important part of our testimony because it helps draw people in and it helps them connect to us. Because I feel like if we jump right into the gospel, then they'll throw it off as, oh, it's another gospel message. But if we can connect if we can connect to it and tell our story, then I feel like they would listen more to us. All right, so the second part is how Paul got saved, and that's found in verses 6 through 11. I'm not going to read that, but I'm going to describe it. I think almost all of us, or all of us, know the story of Paul's conversion on the road of Damascus, and how he was going to Damascus to persecute the Jews, or not the Jews, sorry, but the Christians, and how on the road, when he almost got to Damascus, he was confronted by God and commanded by God to go preach the gospel. And then Paul listened, and the rest is Paul evangelizing and sharing the gospel. But a verse that really stuck out to me that I think that we can relate to is verse number 11. It says, my companions led me by the hand into Damascus because the brilliance of the light had blinded me. I feel like although Paul was physically blinded by the light that the light of Jesus, I think that he was more saying that he was spiritually blinded before he became a Christian. Like, he was saying that he was spiritually blinded really until he met Christ on the road of Damascus. I feel like that we can relate to that in the same way that when we were not Christians, we were spiritually blind as well. But once we became children of God, we became spiritually awoken. And I feel like that this part about how Paul was talking about how he got saved, it helps. And if we show how we got saved, it helps show people how that we were sinners once, and it helps them relate a little bit more, saying that we were once sinners and we were once in the same footsteps that you were, and then we got saved, and you can do the same thing. Finally, Paul talks about how he was after he got saved in verses 12 through 16, or basically what he is commanded to do and what we were commanded to do after we got saved as Christians. And I'm not going to read that as well, but I will say this. I will describe it to you. And it talks about a man named Ananias who comes to Paul and basically gives him his sight back, and then basically points him in the direction that he's supposed to do, evangelizing. And I feel that is what we're commanded to do as Christians. We're supposed to evangelize the message, and we're supposed to act as disciples of Christ. And in verse 15, I think this describes it perfectly. You will be his witness to all people of what you have seen and heard. And now, what are you waiting for? Get up, be baptized, and wash your sins away, calling on his name. We are called to be witnesses to the people of the world for Christ as Christians. And I feel like if we share this with the other people, they know if they become Christians, this is what they'll have to do. Because life isn't necessarily super easy once you become a Christian, as some people who interpret the Bible one way think. Some people think that, when I become a Christian, everything's going to be easy, everything's going to be a breeze, but it's really not. We're supposed to share the gospel with the other people of this world, and we're supposed to do whatever it takes for Christ. And that's really it that I have for you guys, and I hope you have a good weekend. Bye.